You're listening to the ConquerMe podcast, where we'll discuss the mindsets, skills, disciplines, daily habits, and routines that you'll need to finally conquer you. In this podcast, we'll help you uncover and destroy self-limiting beliefs so you can look and feel your best while living life to your full potential. Let's go. All right, guys, welcome to episode number 2 of the ConquerMe podcast. I'm really excited about this episode. The title of this episode is How to Get Unstuck. It's a very important topic because many of us are stuck. We find ourselves in a bad spot in one or multiple areas of life that I'm going to talk about today that I've been stuck in, every single one of them, and have been fortunate to mostly overcome and become unstuck, although I'm still certainly working to some degree on all of these areas. In my past, if you go back and listen to episode number 1 of this podcast, you know that I was really stuck at one point in my life. I was stuck in bad relationships. I was stuck in addiction. I was stuck broke in my finances. I was stuck in really bad environments and really bad situations. And so I've really been fortunate to be able to overcome a lot of that and continue to overcome that. And I think it's a huge topic that needs to be talked about because I have found ways through personal experience and research on how to overcome some of these areas in which most people get stuck. And so it's important to notice right out of the gate that we're all stuck in some degree in certain areas, right? We're all working to improve, no matter who you are listening to this or watching this. We're all trying to improve in these areas, but many of us are really stuck. And so today we're going to talk about my experience. We're going to talk about some of the top areas that people get stuck. And then I'm going to give you some really good actionable steps that you can begin to take right away to get unstuck. So let's talk about the first thing that people get stuck with, and that's their health. Our health is our wealth. There's literally nothing on the planet that is more important than our health. And really, our health, internal health, is simply an expression of what's going on up here between our ears, and it's also an expression of what our environment is like. Health and poor health can be caused by a number of different things, and we'll talk about those here in a second. But if our health is poor and we're weak, our quality of life is also poor, and it's keeping us from being able to live the fullest expression of ourselves that we were created to live. And I believe God created every single one of us with tremendous gifts and talents that we should be using, but we cannot use if our health is a mess, if our health is poor. We're going to be forced to sacrifice all these different life experiences. We're going to not be able to protect ourselves. We're going to be on medications. Our energy is going to suffer. Our self-image is going to suffer. Everything across the board, if our health is poor, is going to suffer to some degree. So if we're stuck in our health, we've got to do whatever we need to do or have to do to move past that and to get in a better place there. So the second place is we get stuck in our money and in our finances. And if you're broke, listen, people say all the time, oh, money's not really that important. Okay, money's the root of all evil. Well, I'll tell you what money is like. Money's a lot like oxygen. You don't really think about it a whole lot until you don't have any. And I would argue that money is very important. And if you don't have money, you're also not able to live to your full potential and do the things that I believe we were created to do. It takes money to solve problems. But if you have these limiting beliefs, which we'll get into in a minute, about money, there's a good chance that you'll never have any. You're going to repel money if you think negatively about it. If it's scarce and you don't have any, you can't help other people that are in need. You can't leave an inheritance to your children's children. It's very important not only how much money we have, but more importantly, how we manage the money that we have. You hear all the time, and it drives me crazy. People say, oh, well, all they're worried about is money. Well, yeah, there's a point where it can become a fault if you're too focused on money. But I think that we should all be striving to be wealthy. I think that we all should be striving to have more than enough. Listen, if you really care about people and you really care about charity and you really care about giving, you can't do any of those things if you're broke. If you have dreams and goals of creating and maybe starting a business or doing something, I'm here to tell you I've started multiple businesses, and it required money for all of those to be successful and to get started. And so we've got to detach those old self-limiting beliefs about money and about health and about everything else that we're going to get into today if you really want to get unstuck. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we move on. So the next thing is relationships. This is a big one. We get stuck in unhealthy relationships. And I'll tell you, this is probably the most detrimental area because we are the average of the 5 people that we hang around the most. And I don't care who you are or how much willpower or how much discipline you think you have, you're not going to change other people. They're going to change you every single time. We're going to adopt and adapt to the people that we're around the most. So if they have all this stinking thinking, if they're negative and they're always gossiping and they're always talking about other people and they're not happy with who they are and they don't have any goals or dreams or they're not striving to be better and there's no growth in their life, guess what? There's going to be no growth in your life either. And so for me, coming from the place that I came from as a child, which was, addiction and all these self-limiting beliefs and negativity and fear and anger and resentment and all these what would be considered quote unquote negative emotions, I really have to be careful with this because that stuff tends to come back up if I'm hanging around people that still behave that way and they still believe that way. A bad relationship can ruin any chance you have at any type of personal development, and it's going to cause us to settle for a lesser version of ourselves every single time. So if you're stuck in your relationships, you've got to find a way out. Now, some of this could simply be a relationship with a friend or a relationship with a colleague, but this might actually be someone who's very close to you, maybe a significant other, maybe a family member, maybe a parent. I have had to distance myself and had to have some really tough conversations with people in the past that I was very, very close with because I just could not continue down that path. It was ruining my growth path and it was really holding me back. And so I've had to love people from a distance, and I've had to let people know that, hey, listen, I love you and I care about you, but I can't continue to associate with you in close proximity because you're tearing me down. And that's a tough conversation to have, but it's an important one. If you are engaged and you're getting ready to marry someone who is not, maybe they don't have the same qualities or desire to grow as you, and maybe they're a negative person, they're going to diminish your potential. And I'm telling you, I know it can be very hard. Let's say you're getting ready to enter into a marriage and you've already done all the legwork and everything's already kind of done, and you enter into that marriage anyway, it's going to be multiple years potentially of you not only growing to your potential and doing the things that you could have been doing and growing to the level that you could have been growing and experiencing the quality of life and joy and peace that you could have been enjoying, but it's going to be diminishing. So not only will you not be ahead, but you're going to fall to their place and their mindset and their belief systems, which means when the relationship finally ends, and it will, you've got that much more ground to make up. And so I'm just warning you, like, it is so powerful, this thing called association, and if you're not careful with it, you will associate with the wrong people, and you will find yourself in a really bad spot. I could go on all day about relationships because it's really, really important, and you can think of it as your association or your network or whatever. But the other thing that is causing people, or the other area that people really get stuck in, is destructive habits and daily routines. Your habits are literally everything and lead you to the place that you are at now, or led you to the place that you're at now. If you look at your daily habits, or you look at your current circumstances, it's just a collection of your daily habits over time. And if your daily habits are destructive, guess what? It's going to lead you down a destructive path. No one thinks about this. We kind of just get up and brush our teeth and go to work and do whatever we do. And we don't really think about the fact that every day we're just making little tiny deposits via habits and routines that are either moving us toward where we want to go in our life, or it's moving us away from where we want to go in life. And it's as simple as that. If you look at a man that's successful or a woman that's successful, they have really good daily habits. If you look at someone who's overweight and sick and broke and has poor relationships, guess what? They have poor daily habits. So if we believe that these things don't matter and we can just kind of go about life and respond to our day and think that we're going to get where we want to go, which would be any type of leveling up of where we currently are, it's just not going to happen. Doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. And somehow we tend to think that, well, tomorrow things are just going to magically change. If our habits and routines don't change in support of where we want to go, we're going to be stuck right where we're at. So let's pay attention to this. If we've kind of brushed this off in the past and just thought, well, my circumstances are just the way they are because of luck or because of happenstance or because of fate, I'm going to tell you, we control our fate largely, and the decisions that we make and the habits that we create every single day will get us closer or further away from where we want to go. And that's just the way it is. So there's no ignoring that. There's no avoiding it. There's no getting around it. If you don't produce better daily habits, you're not going to have better outcomes. Now, the next thing, and one of the most important of all of this, or the most important thing out of all of it, where people get stuck, is in self-limiting thoughts, beliefs, mindsets, the way that we think. Okay, this is where stuck actually begins, right here in the mind. If we're stuck, it's because of our worldview or the story that we've been telling ourselves about a certain situation. It's not serving us, okay? Thoughts are literally things, and our brains, our thoughts, have the power and potential to manifest into what we're thinking about and focusing on the most. So if we're stuck and we're thinking about being stuck in one of these areas all the time over and over and over and over again, and you guys, we've all been there, we're going to stay stuck. If you continue to replay the same story in your head over and over about a past relationship or about how you grew up poor and why money is negative, and you keep playing that loop, guess what's going to happen? Your subconscious mind is going to go to work figuring out a way to help you find evidence that that is true. And you're going to go through something called confirmation bias, and you're going to start looking for reasons why money is bad, or why relationships are bad, or why you don't deserve to have all that God has created you to have, and you will get that result. And so everything starts in the mind. The power that you have to live the life that you want to live starts in the mind. If we believe that we are sick because of our genetics, then guess what? We're going to be sick, and it might not have anything to do with our genetics. If we have sick family members, I hear this all the time. They say, oh, well, my mom died at 45 of cancer, so that's probably what I got to look forward to. You might just be attracting cancer right into your life. And not only are you doing that, but you're putting aside everything that God has for you because of your lack of faith. And nothing can come into your life, joy and peace and prosperity and good health and all the other things that we desire as humans, can come into your life in abundance when you have lack of faith and you're being led by fear and negative thinking. So let's talk about how to get unstuck. And this is my favorite part. I love to jam on this, and I hope that you guys find this helpful. This is basically a collection of my ideas, things that I've done in the past that's really worked for me, and then also research that I've done and books that I've read and different things like that. So the first thing we have to do is we have to take an honest inventory of where we are right now, and we have to think about why we're there. So the honest inventory is we can't blame anymore. We can't look for external circumstances. We have to take a honest, true inventory of every area of our life that I just talked about, and there are others. We need to look at them under a microscope and go, man, do I really like where I'm at right now? Do I like being here? Or am I stuck? And if you're stuck, you've got to, next thing is stop making excuses and take full ownership. Where there's no ownership, there's no power. Okay, so You see this all the time. People blame. We all blame. Well, if my genetics weren't this way, or if my thyroid wasn't messed up, or if my mom and dad would have taught me more about money, or if my husband or wife wouldn't act this way, or whatever the case is, there's no ownership in that. Listen, I don't care what happens. It's your fault. It's my fault. If I'm unhappy or if I'm stuck in a particular area, it's no one's fault but yours and mine. And I love that, because if I can take ownership of that and it's my fault, it's also going to be my fault when I get unstuck. It's also going to be my fault when I move forward in a big way. It's also going to be my fault when I'm living my dreams and I'm providing for other people and I'm doing the things that I'm passionate about and that I love to do. It's all my fault. The successes and the failures we have to take credit for. And so this idea that society has become so just soft and no one wants to take any responsibility and no one wants to see things for what they are. Listen, we talk about fat shaming and we talk about all these different silly political sideways things that are doing nothing but making society soft and keeping us from taking ownership of our life. If I'm fat, I need to look myself in the mirror and say, Jay, you're fat and you need to do something about it, because it is not okay to be fat. It is your responsibility to maintain a healthy, fit, strong body so that you can continue to do the things that you're called to do and leave a legacy for your name and for your family and for those people that support or that you support or rely on you. We don't need to go, well, it's okay, we just need to learn to love ourselves. No, that's a cop-out, right? If we're depressed and we're going through a season of depression, we can't let our depression be the reason why we're not productive. We need to call that out, okay? Or you're depressed? Well, we've got to figure out a way to work through it. Why are we depressed? Let's look at what's causing us to be depressed, and then let's take action towards fixing those things. If you don't feel like going to the gym, guess what? No one cares about how you feel. Go to the gym, right? Like, you can't go, well, I'm overweight because I didn't feel like going to the gym, or the gym was too hot, or the gym was too cold, or the traffic was too bad, or the wind was blowing, or the sun was out, or anything else that we can come up with. That is not taking ownership. That is placing blame. Okay, so the most powerful position that you can ever be in is a place of ownership. And it's to say, I don't care what happens, whether it be good or bad, it's all my fault. And I'm willing to take full responsibility for it. And I am willing to do whatever it takes to make the changes in my life that I need to make to move me to the place that I want to be. So that's number 2. Number 3 is we've got to change our environment. We have to get away from negativity. And here's a little secret. We've got to stop waiting on the world to change, and we need to change. When you change, the world will change. Okay, so if you've just decided to stay stuck because of someone else's behavior and the way someone else treats you, or the way that they act, or the way that they talk to you, or the habits or behaviors that they have, guess what? That's your decision to stay stuck. You need to work on you. I need to work on me. And listen, for someone that is a people pleaser, this is a tough one, because I always want everything to be okay, and I don't want anyone to feel left out, and I want to answer everybody's phone call. But we talked about the power of negativity earlier in this podcast. And I'm telling you right now, if you want to get unstuck, you can't stay around negative people and negative environments. You've got to start setting boundaries and let people know that you're not down for their negativity. Okay, we've had experiences with coworkers where one coworker was really negative and trying to kind of pull another coworker down, and that coworker was not doing great as a result, and the performance was suffering, and the mindset was suffering, and there's a lot of pushback on everything that we would ever try to do for the organization. And it wasn't until that person said, you know what, enough is enough. This negativity is affecting me and my job and the way that I operate, and I've got to cut ties. And this individual had conversations with this person and said, hey, listen, I love you, but I can't continue to have these really negative conversations. It wasn't until then that they were able to move forward. And it's the same thing with you and the same thing with me. We have to change our environment. If you're going to the barbershop every single day, eventually you're going to get a haircut. If you're hanging out with people that aren't where you want to go, and that don't have the goals and dreams and desires and mindsets and aspirations and whatever else that you have or that you desire to have, you're not ever going to escape and get unstuck in that particular area. Okay, so the key here is focus on changing you, and the world around you will suddenly begin to change. And what actually happens is the world doesn't change, but our perspective about the world changes, and really our perspective is what causes us to respond either positively or negatively to any situation. So I tell this story all the time, and I'm going to tell it again because I love it. Two brothers, twin brothers, grew up in the same house. All circumstances are the same. One became a murderer with a long rap sheet. The other became a philanthropist, super wealthy, successful by all measures that you can measure him by. Great family, very fit. Everything was checked out, right? Everything was good. This other person, this outsider, was very intrigued by these two twin brothers and why their outcome was so vastly different. So he decided to interview them. He went to prison first, talked to the brother in prison. Sir, I see you're in prison. You're here for murder. You got a long rap sheet. Why in the world did you turn out this way? He said, you don't understand. My dad, there was abuse in my house. My dad wasn't there. I felt like I had no other way to go except for this way. He was justified in his decision to do these things. He was blaming his dad. The other brother, he goes and he interviews him. Man, you're so successful. You've got all the things that a man would ever want and some. What caused you to be so successful? He said, you don't understand. My dad wasn't there. There was abuse in the house. I felt like I had no other way to go. He also used his dad as an excuse to be successful. He took ownership of his life. And so same exact situation, two totally different perspectives, okay? So let's go to number 4. So I have found that when it's time to make a major change, if you're really, really stuck in a particular area, it's best to have a major disruptor in that particular area to help you to move past it. Okay, so here's an example. If you take an addict off the streets who's shooting heroin and they're right in the middle of their addiction, and you just tell them that you're going to slowly stop over time, you're just going to take baby steps, and over time we're going to stop shooting heroin. It's never going to work. That person needs to be removed from the streets, removed from the environment, removed from the other people that they're around, put into a facility where they're safe, they can be detoxed, and they can have some distance between use. And that is the only way, in most cases, that an addict is going to get clean. Okay, if you are, I'll give you a good example for me. I've been in places where I was in my business that I didn't really want to be. And maybe we were losing money or we were just in a tough spot, and I knew that I needed to change. And I tried to implement different habits, and I tried to do different things to kind of help me. But then all of a sudden I found a coach, and this coach was exactly where I wanted to be. And I was very confident that they could help me, but it cost thousands of dollars to hire this coach. The second I wrote that check, it was a major disruptor, because all of a sudden there was nothing that had my attention more than the fact that I just wrote this coach a massive check with money that I really didn't have to spend. Now, all of a sudden, my focus was on everything that he said. I hung on every word. I did every piece of homework because I knew that this had to change, or else I was going to be throwing away a lot of money, right? So when it comes to making changes and getting unstuck, oftentimes we need a really big disruptor. Maybe it's a bankruptcy. Now, it doesn't always have to get to this place, but my experience says more times than not, when you're really stuck and you've allowed yourself to stay there for too long, it takes a very kind of tragic, negative experience to get you out of there. So maybe it's a bankruptcy. Maybe it's a bad doctor report. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it is, some other mental health crisis. Whatever it is, that disruption is what usually will spur you to move towards change. However, what I'm here to tell you is if it's not that bad yet, you can make a decision to change. So I have a lot of clients in my coaching program, in the ConquerMe coaching program, that have made major progress, that have struggled beforehand, because when they came into the program and they went all in with me, I made it very clear, we're going to go do this. and they invested a pretty sizable amount of money to work with me directly. And now they're getting amazing results. And they've never been able to do this before, but it's the same idea as me investing with my coach. They did the same thing. It caused a big disruption, and now they're able to clear their head and they have momentum in the other direction. Okay, so that leads into number 5, which is you need to hire a coach. Okay, you need to find what's been helpful for me, and which is why I have a coach in almost every area that I just went through with you. You need to find someone as a guide that can help you get where you want to go. Because here's the reality about being stuck. We have built pathways in our brain, neurological pathways that support us being stuck, okay? The thoughts that we keep having over and over, it's like a road. Think about ruts in the driveway. Every time you think it, every time you do it, every time you act on it, every time you participate in it, every time you watch it, every time you eat it, whatever it is, you continue to dig those ruts deeper and deeper and deeper. And in most cases, getting out alone is just not going to happen. You're going to need someone to act as a guide to give you confidence and to give you clarity and to give you direction about how you can overcome that particular thing. Now, I can tell you right now, everything that we talked about in this podcast is what I focus on with my coaching clients. I use something called the R7 framework that I created that helps people to rewire first, to do a really, really honest inventory, which is what we call the reveal phase, to get clear on where we're at and where we want to go. Then we start to rewire the brain through a series of affirmations and positive self-talk and visualization, some other tools, gratitude and all these different things. And then we move into recalibrating our daily habits, and then we start focusing on our metabolism and then our fitness and then all these things that go together to help my clients to get momentum and get unstuck in whatever area that they're stuck in. So I highly recommend, whether it be me or someone else, there's nothing that's been more impactful for me than hiring a coach. I can read all the books. I can watch all the YouTube videos. Content is only content until it's organized in a way that it resonates with us and can be implemented. I want you to remember that. Content is only content until it can be organized in a way that you can actually implement it and it resonates with you and it makes sense and you can do it with confidence and clarity. That's where the magic happens. If you just go watch a big YouTube video about what you're supposed to do, and then you go read a book about what you're supposed to do, and then you go talk to a friend about what you're supposed to do, you've got all these things on your list that you're supposed to do. Well, where do we even start? So to me, I buy time, I buy clarity, I do whatever it takes to shorten the process and expedite the process to get me unstuck as fast as possible. Because if you're like me, I'm still pretty young. I'm 37, I believe now. So I hopefully still have some life left. But I'm thinking even now, man, I could be halfway done. Like, life is flying by. I don't have time to stay stuck, only to show up at the end of this life with regrets, only to show up at the pearly gates and to say, sorry, God, or whatever you believe in. Sorry, I did not live to my full potential because I allowed myself to stay stuck and continue to struggle and not reach out for help or not hire a coach or not start to work on these things at the level that I needed to work on them to move me forward. So that's it for today. I really hope you found this helpful. It is very important that we get unstuck. I believe we've got things to do, each and every one of you, no matter what your circumstances are, whether you be a business person, a stay-at-home mom, whatever you do, there is more inside of you. And most of us are only living to a very small percent of our full potential.